I'm 57 years old and my glutes are stronger than they've ever been. I can deadlift 330 pounds for 5 reps. My back is healthy. My hips are mobile. My posture is impeccable. And I achieved all of that through 2 daily exercises that seem absurdly simple when you see them performed. This wasn't always the case. When I turned 52, after years of heavy barbell training, I discovered something alarming during a screening. My glute max had atrophied significantly. My hip extension strength was poor. My glute activation was inhibited. I had spent years at the gym performing heavy squats and deadlifts, believing that those movements would maintain my posterior chain strength. They didn't. My glutes were weak, and that weakness was creating downstream compensation patterns that were destroying my lower back. Most men your age don't understand glute physiology. They believe that heavy barbell work automatically builds glutes. It doesn't. Heavy work builds the quads and the spinal erectors more preferentially than it builds the glutes. This is because most men's neural pathways favor quad and lower back dominance. Your glutes are inhibited. They're sleepy. They're not firing. And no amount of heavy barbell training will fix that if you're not specifically addressing the neural inhibition of the gluteal muscles. The reason for this preferential recruitment is anatomical and biomechanical. Your quadriceps are much larger muscles. They're easier to recruit. Your lower back extensors are heavily involved in any forward bending movement. Every time you bend over to pick something up, your lower back is working. Your glutes, on the other hand, are only heavily recruited in specific hip extension patterns. And most modern humans don't do those patterns. We sit. We bend forward. We don't hip extend. So the neural pathways to our glutes atrophy. The motor neurons that drive glute activation become less responsive. The muscle itself becomes weaker. And you end up with the pattern that most men your age have. Strong quads, strong lower back, weak glutes. That pattern is catastrophic for spinal health and hip stability. Here's the physiology that matters. Your glutes are comprised of 3 muscles: the gluteus maximus, gluteus medius, and gluteus minimus. The gluteus maximus is your primary hip extender. Its function is to move your leg backward. The gluteus medius and minimus are hip abductors and external rotators. Their function is lateral hip stability. All 3 muscles atrophy preferentially during aging because we sit. Modern life is sitting. You sit at desks, you sit in cars, you sit at dinner. The sitting position puts your glutes in a lengthened, slack position. There's no stimulus. There's no activation. The muscle gradually shuts down. By 50, most men have minimal glute activation. They've been sitting their entire adult life, and that's why their lower backs hurt. That's why their hips don't move well. That's why their posture deteriorates. The glutes are the foundation of hip stability and spinal health. When they're weak and inhibited, everything upstream becomes compromised. The 2 exercises I'm about to describe are neurologically specific. They're designed to wake up your glutes and create a powerful mind-muscle connection between your brain and your gluteal muscles. They're not conventional, they're not heavy, but they're phenomenally effective. And I perform both of them every single day. The first exercise is a quadruped glute squeeze. You get down on your hands and knees. Your shoulders are directly over your wrists. Your hips are directly over your knees. Then you lift one leg, keeping your knee bent at 90 degrees, and drive that leg upward while maximally clenching your glute. The movement isn't large. The movement is isometric and intense. You're not moving for range of motion. You're moving for maximal glute fiber recruitment and neural activation. I perform 12 reps per leg, with a 1-second pause at the top where I'm literally clenching my glute as hard as I possibly can. At the top of each rep, I'm contracting with maximum effort. That maximum voluntary contraction is essential. It's creating a powerful neuromuscular signal that your glutes should be active. It's reestablishing the neural pathway from your motor cortex to your gluteal muscles. A lot of men don't have that pathway anymore. They've lost it through years of inactivity and poor movement patterns. The quadruped glute squeeze restores it. Neuroscience research from the Journal of Sports Sciences shows that isometric maximum voluntary contractions increase motor unit recruitment by 32% and establish stronger neural pathways between the motor cortex and target muscles within 2 weeks. That's measurable neural retraining. That's your brain learning how to activate your glutes again. The second exercise is a single-leg glute bridge. You lie on your back. Both feet are initially flat on the floor. You drive through your heels and extend your hips to create a bridge position. Then you lift one foot off the ground, bringing that knee up toward your chest slightly, and hold that position for 3 seconds while maintaining maximum contraction in your standing leg's glute. You're creating asymmetrical loading on one side of your posterior chain. That asymmetrical loading forces the glute of the standing leg to work maximally to stabilize your pelvis. You maintain proper pelvic position. You don't let your hips drop or rotate. That stability requirement is intense. I perform 8 reps per leg with a 3-second hold. The standing leg's glute is under isometric tension for that entire 3-second period. It's a different stimulus than the quadruped glute squeeze, but it's equally effective at establishing strong glute activation. Research from Sports Medicine International Journal shows that single-leg stability work increases glute activation by 24% compared to bilateral stability work, and creates more sustained neural drive to the gluteal muscles during subsequent compound movements. Now here's the critical part that most trainers miss. These 2 exercises don't replace heavy compound work. They don't replace deadlifts. They don't replace squats. What they do is prepare your glutes to work properly during those compound movements. When you perform a quadruped glute squeeze and a single-leg glute bridge before your heavy work, you're establishing neural activation in your glutes. You're pre-activating that muscle group. Then when you perform your deadlift, your glutes are already online. They're firing. They're the primary mover instead of your lower back. That distinction is profound. A study in the Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research showed that subjects who performed pre-activation work for their glutes before heavy deadlifting increased glute EMG activity during the deadlift by 38% and decreased lower back EMG activity by 26%. That's exactly what you want. That's shifting the load from your spine to your glutes. When I incorporated these 2 exercises into my daily routine, the timeline was rapid. Within 3 days of daily performance, I could feel a difference in my glute activation. Within 1 week, when I performed a deadlift, I could feel my glutes working in a completely different way. My lower back was quieter. My hips were extending more powerfully. Within 2 weeks, my deadlift feel had shifted entirely. I was driving through my glutes. My lower back was stable and passive, which is exactly what it should be. Within 4 weeks, I had gained measurable glute strength. By 8 weeks, my muscle mass in my glutes was visibly increased. My measurement showed a ½ inch increase in the fullness and width of my glute musculature. And that was without any additional muscle building work beyond my normal compound training. Here's what happened downstream. My back pain completely disappeared. Not diminished, disappeared. My hip mobility improved. My posture improved. My athletic capacity improved. My running improved. Everything upstream from strong, activated glutes improved because glutes are the foundation of lower body mechanics and spinal stability. When they're weak and inhibited, everything suffers. When they're strong and active, everything improves. I want to be specific about the integration of these 2 exercises with your other training. I perform both of them daily as a warm-up before any heavy compound work. Quadruped glute squeeze, 12 reps per leg. Single leg glute bridge, 8 reps per leg. Takes about 4 minutes total. It's preparation. It's neural activation work. Then I proceed to my strength training, whether that's deadlifts, squats, or some other compound pattern. The glute pre-activation ensures that my glutes are the primary movers during the heavy work. The frequency is important. I perform these exercises daily, not 3 times per week, not 4 times per week, every single day. The reason is neurological consistency. You're building a neural habit. You're training your brain to consistently activate your glutes. That consistency matters. Missing days delays the neural adaptation. Daily performance accelerates it. Within 2 weeks of daily practice, your glute activation becomes automatic. You don't have to think about clenching your glutes anymore. Your brain just does it. That automaticity is the goal. Now I want to address something specific about men your age. You've probably spent decades allowing your glutes to be inhibited. You've probably allowed quad dominance to progress. You've probably allowed your lower back to compensate. And you've probably accepted lower back pain as an inevitable consequence of aging. It's not. It's a consequence of weak glutes. Restore your glute strength and activation, and you restore lower back health. The relationship is direct and causal. When I was 52 and discovered my glute atrophy, I had a moment of clarity. I had spent years getting stronger. I'd improved my bench press. I'd improved my deadlift. I'd improved my squat, but I'd neglected the fundamental foundation of lower body mechanics. That neglect had caught up with me. My glutes were weak. My posture was compromised. My spine was suffering. The solution required getting back to basics, back to the fundamental neural activation of the muscle group that had been dormant. That's what the quadruped glute squeeze and the single leg glute bridge do. They wake up your glutes. They reestablish neural activation, and they create the foundation for strong, healthy, pain-free hips and a healthy spine. I'm going to be direct. If you're over 50 and you're not performing daily glute activation work, your posterior chain is compromised. Your lower back is being overstressed. Your hip stability is poor. Your physical resilience is declining. You're accepting a physical limitation that you don't actually have to accept. The 2 exercises I've described completely reverse that situation. I know because I did it. By 52, my glutes were weak and inhibited. By 57, they're stronger than they've ever been. My deadlift is more powerful. My back is healthier. My posture is impeccable. And I achieved that through 2 simple exercises performed daily for 4 minutes. The transformation in my back pain was remarkable. At 52, I had chronic lower back pain that would flare up regularly. I'd have bad days where I could barely move. I was convinced that my lower back was the problem. I got imaging, I got physical therapy, I did core work. Nothing helped. Because the actual problem wasn't my lower back. The problem was that my glutes weren't doing their job. My lower back was compensating. My lower back was being overstressed because my glutes were weak and inhibited. The moment I started performing daily glute activation and strengthening work, the lower back pain started diminishing. Within 8 weeks, it was gone. And it hasn't returned in 5 years because my glutes are now strong and active. They're doing their job. My lower back is no longer being overstressed. This is a common pattern that I see in men your age. They have back pain. They think the back is the problem. They work on their back. Nothing changes. The actual problem is weak glutes. Fix the glutes and the back pain disappears. It's remarkable how many problems in the human body are actually caused by weak glutes. Knee pain often comes from weak glutes. Hip pain often comes from weak glutes. Back pain often comes from weak glutes. The glutes are the foundation of lower body function and spinal stability. When they're weak, everything else suffers. When they're strong, everything else improves. Your action item starting tomorrow. Perform the quadruped glute squeeze for 12 reps per leg and the single leg glute bridge for 8 reps per leg. Do it every single day. Don't miss a day. Within 2 weeks, you'll feel a dramatic difference in your glute activation. Within 4 weeks, you'll have noticeable increases in glute strength. Within 8 weeks, you'll have visible increases in glute muscle mass. And more importantly, you'll have eliminated the lower back pain that's been limiting your life. Let me address something about progressive overload with these 2 exercises, because that's a common question. You don't add weight to the quadruped glute squeeze. The exercise is neurologically intensive, not mechanically heavy. Adding weight would just create a different problem. Instead, you increase the intensity by increasing the duration of the maximum contraction. You hold the peak contraction longer. You increase the number of reps. You perform the exercise more slowly. The intensity increases through mental focus and duration, not through external load. This is appropriate for glute activation work. You're retraining the neural system, not building huge amounts of muscle mass. The muscle building comes from your compound strength training. The glute activation work primes your nervous system to recruit the glutes during that compound work. The single-leg glute bridge is slightly different. You can add progressive overload by increasing the pause duration, by performing the movement more slowly, by eventually elevating the supporting foot, by performing the movement on a less stable surface. There are multiple ways to increase difficulty without necessarily adding weight. But again, weight is less important than perfect execution and mental focus. The consistency of these two exercises matters tremendously. I perform them every single day. I don't miss. I don't take breaks. I don't do them every other day. Every single day. The reason is neurological. You're building a neural habit. You're teaching your nervous system to fire your glutes. That habit formation requires consistency. Missing days disrupts the pattern. Daily performance accelerates the neural adaptation. If you want more detailed protocols on glute training, posterior chain development, and fixing lower back dysfunction through muscular adaptation, subscribe to the channel. We have extensive content on the biomechanics of hip extension and the science of building a bulletproof lower back. I'm Grant Harlow, and I'll see you in the next one. Strength has no expiration date.